This guy has been with us since the very beginning. It's our 2-year anniversary. And he has forgotten more about politics than most of us will ever know. Put it together for the great Michael Shure, everybody. Yeah.
Am I out of the green room?
You're you're out of the green room and onto the ice, as you would say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Michael Shure, will you answer first the question that was just asked about the general election vote and the fact that the Latino community, and again, I think it's always tough to paint one community or one group of people in any one way, but it is odd that the Latino community can be hammered relentlessly by Trump, and still he can find so much support there from the standpoint of voters. Can you explain that or square that for us?
It's the economy, stupid, is the best way to say it. The economy doesn't know if you're Hispanic or Black or Jewish or white, or if you work middle class jobs or if you work in an office every day. The economy, the cost of living, all of that affects everybody. And, for Hispanic voters, just like all of us, if the prices, the cost of living seems high, if it doesn't seem like making ends meet is as easy as it was, what do? You take it out on the people that are in power at that moment. And then, I think that there is, it goes a little deeper than the economy. I mean, there's always a percentage of Latino voters who are resentful of a looser immigration policy, or one that has been painted as being looser, just because they are Hispanic. Immigration is not their number one issue. And as a matter of fact, there are a lot of people who have been here for 2 or 3 generations who resent looser immigration policies. They don't like being lumped in with people who are illegal, being mistaken for being illegal, especially in states like Nevada, where the job market is very different than it would be in other places. And there are a lot of illegal immigrants working in Nevada, but there are also a lot of established citizens, green card holders, the descendants of illegal immigrants who are American citizens and working hard and are resentful of being lumped in with that crew. So there are lots of things at play, but at the end of the day, it's the economy.
Shout out producer Calvin Wan also adds he thinks it's because of anti-abortion and religion that they still back Trump. That used to be the case. Is that still the case?
I mean, it absolutely
on some level, maybe.
On some level, I mean, many of them are Catholics and devout Catholics who find abortion to be, anathema to the way they live their lives. But I still think that they vote on issues of the economy, to a certain extent, healthcare, which you would think would make them more like Democrats. But I think the immigration is not as big a deal. I don't think that religiosity is. I think it's really economy.
Vilma points out that a lot of these Hispanic radio stations are being bought up by right-wing media giants and influencing their listeners that way too. Never even thought of that. That's a great point. I mean, the Latino community.
It's an excellent point. Yeah, it's what their echo chamber is as well, and that kind of influence. Just like you don't have to be any certain color to be susceptible to the influence of radio and media, and that's a great point.
And now to the polling, which is all over the place. So, if you woke up yesterday, or was it 2 days ago, you saw swing state polls where Trump leads in 4 of 7 of these battleground states. Kamala Harris behind Trump in Michigan. They're tied, I guess, in the Emerson poll released yesterday. And Trump has actually lost 2 points since the September survey, where he was leading. But in Wisconsin, she's behind. Trump leads by 2 points. Again, this is in the Quinnipiac poll, and the two are tied at 49% in the Emerson poll. That's, again, a 1-point gain for Harris, well within the margin of error, as can be said about all of these. And in the Fox 38 average, she's up 0.8 of a point. Now to Pennsylvania. Harris leads Trump 49% to 46% in the Quinnipiac poll. Again, Trump is behind. In the Emerson poll, a 1-point gain for each candidate since September. And the Emerson survey found that Trump is up 48 to 47%. And in 538's polling average, it's 0.7 of a point for Harris. And I can go on. In Arizona, Trump leads by 2 points. In Georgia, Trump leads Harris by 1 point. In Nevada, Harris is up 1 point, 48 to 47%. And in North Carolina, Trump has reversed Harris's 1 point lead since Emerson's September survey in its latest poll, showing him leading her 49 to 48%. So when you do all of the reading through these polls in these states, it does look like Trump is gaining some ground. Then you wake up today, and there's a Wall Street Journal poll, and the Wall Street Journal poll is just the opposite. The Wall Street Journal poll shows Harris. Albert, do you have those graphics on the Wall Street Journal poll? Wall Street Journal poll actually shows Harris up. Now, this is a breakdown in questioning of the economy, okay? So who's best able to handle each of the following? Economy, you can see Trump continues to have that lead. I mean, these are all things that are inexplicable to me, Michael Shure, but you can explain it, maybe. Inflation, immigration and border security, these are all the top three that Trump leads by a considerable margin. Then when you get to housing affordability, health care, cares about people like you, and stand up for the American worker, that's when Kamala Harris comes along again. And how about the next one, Albert, please? Then I'll shut up and I'll let Michael just give you the sense. Here, I thought this is interesting, Michael Shure. This is the share of voters who are considered up for grabs. Persuadable is what they call them. In February of this year, it was 28% of people who seem to be persuadable, up for grabs. That has dropped. The first post-Biden poll has it, under 20%, and now it's at 16%. There are only 16% of the people who are still can't quite decide. Is it Harris or is it Trump? All of this said, I'm wondering if you can help us a little bit with what we can take away from this, or is this just, it's all margin of error mess and who really knows?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. Basically, these states are so close that these candidates should be in these states and spending money in only these states. We should call them battleground states or swing states. That's what they are, right? They're swing states for a reason, because they're so damn close. Razor thin margin. That is what decided the 2020 election, really also decided the 2016 election. It's a race that is run in these certain states. And because of the Electoral College, that's how our elections are targeted now. And, I would say the North Carolina more in play now than it was. I think many people who follow politics are surprised how, Georgia has come around as being a lot more blue than they thought. Arizona similarly. But, there's no mystery here. These polls are going to seesaw until some of these votes in that 16% break. And I don't know that we'll see that reflected in the polls or not. I also don't know. I mean, to me, you said 16% seems low. It seems high to me. I don't know what a lot of these voters are waiting to hear from these candidates. Yeah, maybe specificity from Harris, but if you're still on the fence about specificity from Harris, that means that you're probably a Trump voter or have been a Trump voter in the past, and you're looking for a reason not to vote for him. And she's got to make that sale between now and Election Day, which is the job she's doing right now. So I'm skeptical about those people who say that they haven't made up their minds. I don't know very many of them, and 16% to me seems high. And I don't know that where those voters are, right? So if you're an undecided voter in California, sure, there's some people that I know somebody who's in Oregon who, because Oregon is so clearly going to go to Harris, and she doesn't like the way the Democrats have been, and she doesn't like the way the Republicans certainly have been. She'd never vote for Trump. She said, it gives me the freedom to vote for a third party. So some of these people who say they're undecided, maybe they're in states that don't matter as much. I think a lot of minds are made up where it does matter. I don't say that scientifically, but from being out there and seeing voters. And as far as to why these polls fluctuate a little bit, different polling organizations have different methodologies, and their methodologies, they're a kind of a hybrid of the way polling is done now and the way it had been done for so many decades in this country. And the changing methodologies are what give you sort of some polling organizations that get ratings of A or B or C, some that are partial to a certain party, that are hired by certain parties more, some are internal polls that are leaked. But I think when you look at Quinnipiac, which I think after 2020 and 2022 gets a B rating, which is pretty good. You look at them, they've been doing it for quite a while, but they haven't perfected what they once had because they were probably one of the top rated pollsters there for a very long time. Quinnipiac, a college in Hamden, Connecticut, that has always been doing this kind of polling, political polling, and they've kind of made a mark. Monmouth University similarly, and Marquette University in Wisconsin. So again, I would say there are swing states because of things like this, and these numbers should probably fluctuate. And I would imagine the last couple of weeks of the election, you'll see some of those 16%, we'll call it that because that's what the polls say, 16% starting to break one way or another.
Yeah, just to double back, the reason I said it was low, I said it's low, it was in relation to where it had been. It's been close to 30%.
Yeah, and I think where it had been, I mean, look, so let's say it was undecided at 28%, which is the numbers that Albert showed us in that graphic, and then it moved to 16%. Well, that means 12% of those undecideds probably took another look at the race when Vice President Harris joined and President Biden was no longer the candidate. And, because you can see there, that's the first Biden poll there. So you see the undecided, but now undecideds have gone up again if you look at that, right? I mean,
sure,
if you look at the graphic there. So they came down, they went down below 16%. Now they seem to have come back up, which means that maybe people are saying, we like Vice President Harris. Now the more we like her because she's not Joe Biden. And now the more we hear about her, we're still now up for grabs because maybe that's not exactly what we're buying.
Yeah. We had a bit of Obama on the stump, who was very good, I thought, in Pennsylvania. Yeah. Meantime, Trump was in Detroit, and, we played the weird, bizarre riffing that he does. He goes on for 2 hours, and he's just all over the road. I mean, it was really the kind of thing where you'd sit down with family members and you go, I think, Grandpa is beginning to kind of lose it a little bit. He's just meandering. Some of that is him going on prompter, off prompter, feeling like he can just ad lib out of anything. But I thought, just to marry the two, that Obama made a great Trump reference. Of course, there were a bunch of Trump references, but one that I hadn't heard before, and now I can't get out of my head when I watch him go for hours and hours on the stump. He mentioned Fidel Castro, and he was kind of reaching for a comparison. And then I remembered, Fidel Castro used to do, remember those like 4.5-hour rants? He would go, he was so Trumpian. He would get up there and just go for 4.5 hours.
For sure. He was a narcissist like Trump is.
And the crowd wouldn't dare go anywhere, in Cuba.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mention this because I'm curious. Again, I know you can't know, but you can give us your thought. And you have been in the belly of the beast at these rallies. How much of a difference does having Obama out on the stump make in a place like Pennsylvania?
I mean, I think it's huge, and I think he should go to Detroit, and I think he should stay in Philadelphia a lot, and I think that he should be in the big cities making sure that Democrats get their reliable voters out. I think Democrats, if they're going to, look, running against Donald Trump is one thing. To think that every single time Donald Trump says something that is inexcusable or shocking or how can this man be president, that doesn't matter anymore. We all know that. Every voter knows that. They know what the wild stuff about Donald Trump is. That's not going to move very many voters. It may move a couple still who say when it comes time to do it that they just can't vote for that guy. Those are not the people the Democrats need to target. You can be outraged, you can be shocked, but making that your campaign, which Vice President Harris is not doing, is probably smart. Getting surrogates like Barack Obama, who's probably the best surrogate the Democrats have, getting them in big cities where your reliable voters are and making sure they have a plan to vote and are coming out to vote. That's the most important part, where early voting starts and Barack Obama's there saying, you've got to go vote tomorrow. You've got to get your ballot and you have to make sure your registration is right. You have to make sure you have ID if it's required where you are. That sort of stuff is super important for Democrats because they need the people that they know will vote for them to make sure they vote. And the other stuff will take care of itself.
Something that happened this week, Michael Shure, is that the richest man in the world has become very much interested and very much a backer of Donald Trump in a more aggressive manner than he had been in the months prior. He has come out. In fact, he even started the quote interview that he did
Yeah.
with Donald Trump. It was a sit down, that the two did, and basically Musk said, "Let me tell you how great I think you are," and Trump said, "Let me tell you how great I think I am," and then Musk continued, "Let me tell you why I think you're the savior for this country, etc." But now he has dumped more money, more time, and more of his social media company into this Trump campaign. Give me a sense of your take on how important that might be and how that might dictate outcome.
Well, how it will dictate outcome is because you talk about the media, right? I mean, Donald Trump complains about the media, the fake news, the fake media. When you have one of your cronies running a social media platform that is used by millions of people, and we're talking about the Twitter, whatever they call it now, and so that when he does that, they are completely in control of how people get their information. And being in bed with Donald Trump in that way is super important to the Trump campaign because it's able to siphon information that they want siphoned, and it's free of charge. It's not paid media. There's no cost to them. Kamala Harris and her campaign have raised, it sounds like, over $1 billion. It's an incredible sum. The Republicans and Trump can't come close to those numbers. So what do? They get free media in this way. The other thing that Trump is doing is he's going to places, he's going to blue states. He's going to Colorado, right? He's going to New York, and he's going to be in Coachella in California this weekend. Why is he doing that? He's not going to win these states. He's doing that because it's free media. He's going to go to these big venues. He's going to say whatever it is he says, and they're going to get that video and they're going to put it out all over the place. And that's facilitated by people like Elon Musk. So too is the money, a lot of the money going to the PAC of Donald Trump. So it matters a lot. It also matters a lot because going forward, Elon Musk is clearly going to be a part of a Trump administration. In what fashion, I don't know, but it affects the Senate vote too. If the Senate is in Democrats' favor and Donald Trump wants to appoint him to a job where he has to be approved by the Senate, it will be much more difficult if the Senate is run by Democrats next time. If not, Elon Musk is going to have a lot of unfettered power in a Trump administration, one would assume.
Well, I remind everyone, I've made the point before, that Musk has tremendous interest in having power in the American government. He already has a lot of power because the American government needs him for the space shots. They're completely dependent on him for getting stuff into space at this point, getting people back from space. But he also has other data-related interests with the Pentagon and with the American government. So when we talk about Elon...
Yeah, right. Well, and they're billionaires and wealthy people obviously have power of varying degrees in American politics. The richest men in the world being involved is unprecedented. If you look at other richest men in the world types like Bill Gates or Warren Buffett, they will tell you some things. They will drop in and say a few things, but they don't necessarily go in and try and influence a presidential race in the way that he has done. I mean, could Bill Gates have done that? Perhaps. I think when you own Microsoft, you have certainly a way of an outlet of doing things like that. Mark Zuckerberg, too, himself has said that he wants to recede from it because he thinks that he has too much influence. He doesn't want that influence. He's spoken and he regrets some of the things he said. Whether or not you believe him, it's certainly an easy way out for him to no longer be a part of it. Musk is full bore in there. And like you said, there are things that he, it works with the government on, and most of that has to do with space, but he is certainly replaceable, right? The United States government and our space program and our armed forces and our technology is going to go forward with or without Elon Musk. But when you have somebody who is so partisan in there, who has such strong opinions about the direction of the economy, who has such strong opinions on issues that are affecting the economy but have no bearing upon what he does for a living every day, then I think you're in uncharted territory, and that becomes dangerous.
That's interesting. He's, and apparently this speaks to you, according to reporting, in private conversations, Musk is reported to be obsessive, almost manic about the stakes of the election and the need for Mr. Trump to win. He praises Mr. Trump's courage under fire, endorses him on the night of the assassination attempt in Butler, talks about how funny he is. One person who spoke recently to Mr. Musk recalled him saying without any hint of irony, I love Trump. And as you say, he'd have an oversized role in a Trump administration, especially from a president who doesn't really care about policy and running stuff. I think this underpins a lot of the support he finds in Silicon Valley bromances that he has with David Sachs and with Chamath from that world of Facebook. That's where Chamath made his money originally. But anyway, all these guys who are mega jillionaires, and I think they want, and they're still very much involved in technology, and they want. And they want, for example, the talk of breaking up their control, technological control, corporate control of technology. They want that over, right, Michael Shure?
Yeah.
They don't want, is it Lena Khan? They don't want people like Lena Khan at the FTC to go after them. And this is what they would get from Donald Trump. He would clear the deck for them.
Yeah, for sure, and he'll also be retributive against people who have wronged him and the people around him. He's somebody who values loyalty. He will dismiss people who are disloyal immediately. He will talk down to them. I don't know what would happen if Elon Musk turned around and went against Trump, but Musk is setting things up so that Trump can't go against him at this point because of loyalty. And so I think it sets up a potentially dangerous precedent. I can't say it's absolutely dangerous because I don't know what the motivation is, but certainly I think when you have access to an administration and an administration who is indebted to you, should they ever come into play, should Trump win this election, you don't want a president who's indebted to any one person generally. Being indebted to the unions, that's different than being indebted to Elon Musk or a very wealthy American.
What should we watch for in our final minutes here with you? I'm not talking about what we should watch for in our final minutes with you. I mean, what should we watch for in the few weeks ahead?
I think that what watch where the vice president is going, where she's spending her time on the campaign trail, where the money is being spent, and I would spend less time watching what Donald Trump is saying generally, because it's not going to vary very, very much. I mean, it's really not. Look, I think we can say as a collective here, the things he said haven't really mattered. I think perhaps he lost that race because of his handling of COVID, because of his bombast, and because of the fact that there was somebody like Joe Biden running against him. Kamala Harris is a very different kind of candidate. She's the first woman. She's the first African-American woman at the same time. She's the first person who didn't go through a normal nomination process. And she has to be able to convince Democrats to come out. Early voting is, when those numbers start coming in and you see the percentages of early voting, it will give you a sense of enthusiasm. But again, there are also people who are skeptical of early voting, right, who will wait until November 5th, many of them. I mean, I like voting on Election Day. I'm usually on the road for it, so I voted by early ballot. I think it's fun to vote, but I'm a dork.
I agree with you. I always run into people I know. I love seeing in the old days, like the kind of the volunteers, the old grandma types. I loved it. It really was great. Go ahead, Kim.
And I would watch the former president. I would watch Barack Obama. I would watch to see what kind of surrogates are going out there and how they're galvanizing people. I think that's all important. And that's something the Democrats have more than the Republicans right now. There's no question that that's what's happening. One other race I would look at closely is the Nebraska Senate race, where the incumbent Deb Fischer has been behind in a few polls to Osborne, the independent who's running there, not a Democrat, but an independent. And that could really impact the Senate, too. I know we've talked a lot about the presidential race, but there are some Senate races out there that are going to decide the direction of the country as well. And that's one.
The Sherrod Brown race, the Tester race, where are we on those?
I mean, I would say that if I had $100 to bet on each of those races, and it was my last $100 and I had to win, I would bet against Tester and I would bet on Brown. But it doesn't mean anything. Tester has surprised people in the past, and I think that can't be forgotten. That each time John Tester is not supposed to win that race. He's running against an impressive guy in Tim Sheehy. There are a lot of former Californians who live in Montana, but that doesn't change it to Democrats. A lot of Republicans move in. I love when people say that, oh, all these Californians have relocated to Montana. Yeah, well, it's a small sample of population. And on top of that, it's a small state. And further than that, they're not all Democrats. Just because you move from California doesn't mean you're a Democrat.
Go ahead, Kim.
Do you think all of these interviews that Kamala Harris is doing, the Howard Sterns, the Views, all of these things, will that make a difference? Will that finally let voters get to know who she is? Because we've heard people say, I just don't know her. I just don't know enough about her. Is that helping? And are we going to see that continue through the end of the election?
So, yeah, I think it will probably help. We won't know till it's all said and done, but I would imagine it helps. I think if you look at the typical Howard Stern voter, it's a male, right? And I think that if you have, Howard Stern, who is beloved by his audience, interviewing a woman who's running for president and being as openly passionate as he was about getting people to vote for her, I think that can't not make a difference. Anything that facilitates someone voting for someone who they may not otherwise vote for, I think is important. You go on The View, Kamala Harris is running to be elected by women, right? I mean, it's a lot of these suburban women who left the Republican Party over the issue of Roe v. Wade, who left in 2022 after January 6th. And I think that holding on to those voters, super important. And I think The View still reaches those voters. It also reaches a lot of African-American voters. She needs to get the African-American vote out. It's not a default just because you're a black woman running in the United States for office that every black person is going to vote for you, or that a percentage of the population, that every black man is going to vote for you. That's even something they're trying to push back on. I think, Kim, that it matters, that there's no question it matters. I don't know the big numbers. Again, 16% of people have to be persuaded according to that poll, which I'm skeptical of. But if it, any handful of voters that it persuades is important.
When I hear I just don't know enough about Kamala Harris, I hear a Trump voter that just doesn't want to say they want to vote for Trump. I'm sorry. That's what I hear. Now, that might be my own paranoia also, but I think that they're oftentimes looking for a hook on which to hang a Trump vote.
I think you could be looking at a Trump voter who doesn't want to vote for Trump and is still open for, selection and doesn't know enough about Harris. I mean, Harris is not an open book. And if that to me is an exciting voter, right? That means that he can or she can be convinced to vote for Kamala Harris, but I got to learn more about her. She's got to come up with more specific policies. Or they're a single issue voter that pick an issue, right? Let's say it's the economy. I want to know what she's going to do about the economy. I want to know how she's going to,
Okay. But all I would say, Michael, is that when I just haven't heard enough about policy from Kamala Harris. Yeah, what have you heard about policy from her opponent? I mean, there's one policy. He wants to he's going to deport everybody. I get it. Kenzema, he wants to deport everybody. I get it. Apart from that, he's just spitting stuff out there. There's so these aren't policy-motivated
decisions. You can't dismiss that there are voters who think that he has articulated a policy and who look at his record through rose-colored glasses. You can't dismiss that. That's a fact. People do. Right. And if Jim Smith and Jane Smith show up at your door and they say, look, I really don't want to vote for Donald Trump. Sell me on this vice president. Sell me on your candidate. I want to hear more specifics because I already know what I know about Trump and I'm okay with it, but I'm not totally okay with it.
All right. Maybe some wiggle room.
Every vote, there is room. But you're right, and I'm right, and there are lots of different ways.
Well, I like it when we're both right. All right. Michael, congratulations on the Niners win, by the way.
All right, yeah. Niners, and condolences to Albert for a terrible Sharks loss last night. But journey of 1,000 steps, I guess.
Very exciting. New players. Scored a goal too. Macklin Celebrini, but
Yeah, it wasn't quite a goal. I mean, it went off someone's skate, but it was, they count those. But being up 4-1 going to the third, up 4-1 going into the third and losing 5-4, heartbreaking. But yeah,
Wow, that
Heartbreaking,
is,
but compared to last year is very good, which is
of course,
kind of sad.
It's true. Yeah, they were up going into the third, but you weren't able to sail out last year.
Michael, we will talk to you next week. Thank you as always, and congratulations on being with us for 2 years. It's our 2-year anniversary, and we're very excited.
Congratulations
You've been
to you guys.
a big part of it. Michael Shure, everybody. Thanks, Michael. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.